As commercial aviation has evolved to become the preferred way of traveling around the world as well as transporting cargo, airlines have come a long way from serving regional markets to crossing continents, allowing travelers to go to any major city around the world within one day. And as the world has become interconnected, how airlines have done business has evolved to include partnerships with other airlines, sometimes those competing against them in certain markets. These types of partnerships can range from interline agreements, which opens up travel connections, and code-share partnerships, which allows airlines to sell flights operated by a partner airline. These developments contributed to the success and growth of airline alliances, which are usually a group of airlines that have formed a business agreement, providing benefits for airlines and travelers, which is a topic I have already discussed in a previous video. Lately, the new trend of aviation partnerships amongst airlines has been taken to another level, which is referred to as joint ventures. And this video will discuss what these joint ventures are amongst airlines and how it's shaping the present and future of airline partnerships. While there has been a growth of interest for airlines to take part in joint ventures, this is not necessarily a new concept in business, which allows two or more businesses to collaborate to achieve a certain business goal in mind. In the aviation industry, this has been taken advantage of some of the large legacy carriers, whose partnerships have been built based on existing code-share agreements and the airline alliances. While there may already be existing interline and code-share agreements as well as mutual benefits for frequent flyers, these joint ventures allow airlines to better coordinate in marketing and sales as well as even applying it to cargo operations, as the two or multiple parties in the joint venture could operate as one entity in a certain market. So unlike code share or interline agreements, these airlines could also add a revenue sharing agreement based on the number of flights sold for each airline. Along with the benefits of sharing revenues, airlines could better coordinate schedules, especially giving an advantage on certain markets, using a mix of resources at airports and the aircraft being used by both airlines. However, while the parties involved will be able to operate as one on the markets that they state, these business agreements are also heavily regulated and must be approved by government authorities, usually by the head offices for each country's transportation departments or ministries. And more often than enough, they are heavily scrutinized, especially that these joint ventures are usually, when approved, are granted antitrust immunity. While short of a full-on merger between two companies, these joint ventures often do have the potential to impact some of the largest markets in aviation and provide airlines with access to certain resources and markets they would otherwise never have access to in the past. As many of the new joint venture announcements has been occurring during especially the last decade, the first known joint venture was formed by the Delta's predecessor Northwest Airlines along with the Netherlands KLM, as they announced coordination on flights and reservations across the Atlantic in 1993. The Northwest and KLM partnership would eventually pave the way for the three major airline alliances to be formed, as air travel became more increasingly interconnected, with travelers going beyond their first arrival destination to another destination beyond that. Since then and into the 2020s, we now see the major legacy carriers around the world announcing plans or getting approvals by their respective governments to form joint ventures with other airlines, with some cases involving a stake of a sale to a foreign airline involved in the joint venture. From an airline perspective, it does open up new markets, and an example of this could be seen in Delta, which has made headlines in South America with the recent announcement of its joint venture with LATAM, which just so happens to be a part of the One World Alliance, the competing airline alliance to Delta's SkyTeam. With the joint venture with LATAM, Delta now has a much broader reach around the world to offer its customers with its other joint ventures with European, Asian, and Australian partners. With the added levels of coordination, Delta doesn't necessarily have to add more flights to the destinations in South America or in Asia using its own aircraft, and instead focusing on operating flights to certain key hubs for those airlines, such as Seoul's Incheon Airport for Korean Air, where Delta travelers could then make connections on Korean Air flights to key destinations in Asia. As with Delta and other airlines in joint ventures, they could also better coordinate schedules at key hubs. And an even better example of this could be seen with the United and All Nippon Airways joint venture using the hub at Tokyo Narita. From the several U.S. cities United operates from the U.S., including Honolulu and Guam, much of the arriving United Airlines flights during the mid-afternoon, usually around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Travelers could then make a connection of 2 to 3 hours to key destinations on ANA's Asia network, which includes Manila, Bangkok, Ho Chi Minh, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and recently Delhi. On the way back from Asia to North America, it works the same way with the arrivals on ANA flights from those destinations in the early to the mid-afternoon, allowing connections onto United's flights to North America. As with any joint venture, it is not uncommon to see routes operated by the airlines involved in the joint venture, as in the case with United and ANA, which travelers could book travel on their preferred flight on the segments involving trans-Pacific travel. And more often than enough, these flights between the key hubs has enabled airlines in joint ventures to operate new flights to new destinations that previously may otherwise have been unviable without the additional connecting traffic. Airlines and industry experts often sell the added benefits to consumers and government agencies, especially the regulators, that new joint ventures will promote better options for travelers. And while it's clear it benefits the airlines, some consumer groups have criticized the move to allow these joint ventures to occur, which is seen to create even bigger airlines than the large legacy carriers that they are today, which puts small, low-cost carriers or regional airlines at a certain disadvantage. Recently, new opposition has emerged from within the airlines as pilots and crew are growing concerned that these joint ventures may decrease the opportunities for their own pilots to fly aircraft, especially on key routes. This has also been echoed by labor groups such as the Airline Pilots Association in the United States, as the issue involves labor contracts and scope clauses involving aircraft and the usage of them. As we look into the future of collaborations among the airlines of the world, we know it's inevitable that given the interconnectivity of the global travel market, we could expect more players to get involved in the game of forming joint ventures, which does raise the question as to also the future of airline alliances, as some airlines have gone against their fellow alliance members and formed their own joint ventures with other competing airlines. In recent years, I've come to look at airline alliances as a form of a global airline, and major hubs around the world are major battlegrounds for these airlines. And to the credit of alliances and joint ventures, it has made the international aviation industry much more interesting to look at, as it's no longer a game of individual airlines competing against each other, but a wide spectrum of budget and full-service carriers, as well as those in joint ventures that are competing in similar or long-range markets. Adding to another dimension that airlines that are not currently involved in joint ventures or airline alliances must take into account when planning for their strategy for the future. How do you see the joint ventures evolving in the future? And will governments continue to approve these proposals amid growing concerns that it is limiting competition within the global aviation industry? Which joint ventures have you seen the most benefit from as well as the least? I definitely would love to hear your input on this. Thank you for watching. This has been another edition of Flights in Asia, highlighting the news and updates from the aviation and travel scene from the Asia Pacific. If you like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Once again, thank you for watching and have a great day.